considering how full of himself the shaman had been right up until its death. It would have been totally shocked to hear its new nickname. Oh well, it was already dead anyway. Jin-Woo happily called back his shadow soldiers. He could now store 30 shadows, but that meant saying goodbye to the rest forever. I've done enough for today. With a smile, he jumped down from the altar. A crowd quickly gathered around him, strike squad hunters, Payan and some men in black suits. One of those suited men looked familiar. When did Manager Woo arrive? Jinchul's expression said he had seen the shadow soldiers too. Jin-Woo, someone called out. Hunter Sung. Another voice chimed in. Even Mr. Luggage was tossed his way. Everyone stopped and eyed each other cautiously. Jin-Woo no longer needed to hide his powers, so he'd enjoyed going all out. But, how am I going to slip away from here? He scratched the back of his head, glancing around at the people surrounding him. Jinchul made the first move. While others were checking out the competition, he slipped next to Jin-Woo and flashed his ID to the other hunters. I'm with the association's surveillance team, he said coolly. Just hearing those words made everyone from the Hunters Guild, except Hain, twitch a little. It was like he'd shown off a sneak peek of their deepest secrets. Jinchul stepped in smoothly, taking charge of the moment. The association is handling Hunter Jin-Woo Sung's case, so everything about him needs to stay top secret, he said with a serious face. Jin-Woo couldn't help but be impressed. Jinchul acted so naturally, it felt like he'd practiced his lines and expressions in front of a mirror. But Jin-Woo quickly figured out what Jinchul was up to. Jinchul's eyes flickered with a secret message meant only for Jin-Woo. I've got your back. Jin-Woo was clueless. Why the surveillance team was suddenly on his side, but he wasn't going to question his luck. He nodded silently. This was exactly what he needed. Jinchul's crew picked up on the cue instantly and sprang into action, closing in around Jin-Woo like a shield. If you need anything, Jinchul muttered quietly, go through the association. Hunter Jin-Woo Sung, you need to come with us, Jinchul said firmly. His tone made it clear he wouldn't accept any arguments. The hunters from the guild had a lot of questions and things to discuss with Jin-Woo, but Jinchul's cold determination left them silent. The surveillance team stepped forward, guiding Jin-Woo through the crowd of hunters. Jin-Woo nodded politely. Thanks for the help, he said quietly, but something feels off. Why was Jinchul helping Jin-Woo without being asked? Jin-Woo waited until they were away from the others before asking quietly. Why are you suddenly helping me? Jinchul replied. Are you planning to join the Hunters Guild? Jin-Woo shook his head. Without missing a beat, Jinchul explained that Jin-Woo had just shown off powers stronger than an S-rank hunter in front of Korea's largest and richest guild. This was the best plan if you wanted to keep things chill. Sure, no one realized just how far the super powerful Hunters Guild would go to get their hands on another top hunter, while other S-rank hunters would jump at this chance. Jin-Woo wasn't interested. The Hunters Association wasn't having an easy time either. The association was working hard to stop one specific guild from messing with the balance of power, while Jin-Woo just wanted to get another guild off his back. Turns out, they both wanted the same thing. Normally Jin-Woo would feel weird about owing the association a favor, but in this case everyone ended up winning. The association is making my life easier, he thought, cracking a small smile at how things had worked out so perfectly. As they were about to leave the boss's lair, a sudden yell pierced the air. Wait, Jin-Woo quickly turned around, surprised by Ki-hoon's voice. There he was, leaning on a colleague for support, his face pale but determined. His wounds were treated, yet walking clearly strained him. Despite this, Ki-hoon stood there, showing unexpected strength. Jin-Woo bowed his head to Jin-Woo. Thank you, he said sincerely. He opened up from the heart. We're all safe because of you, Hunter Sung. I'm thanking you not just for myself, but for the whole strike squad. If what the surveillance team said was true, Jin-Woo had a solid reason to keep his identity a secret. With powers as strong as his, it made sense he'd want to stay hidden. But even so, Jin-Woo had still stepped in to help Ki-hoon and his team, risking exposure. What really stood out was that he didn't ask for anything in return. Ki-hoon could have asked for payment, or even the remains of the magic beasts he was saved from, but instead he just left without a word. Ki-hoon wanted to show how thankful and respectful he was, but he didn't know how. Thank you, Ki-hoon finally managed to say, his voice filled with emotion. His body hurt a lot, but he kept bowing deeply to show respect. Ki-hoon got emotional as he watched Jin-Woo give the magic beast a taste of its own medicine. Jin-Woo had just punished an orc in the exact same way. Ki-hoon had been abused, Looking back on that moment, Ki-hoon felt like he couldn't thank him enough for what he'd done. The rest of the strike squad finally snapped out of their daze as they watched their leader bow down. If it wasn't for Jin-Woo, he's our savior. Isn't he? They shouldn't just stand there like fools. So they hurried over to Jin-Woo, bumping into each other along the way, and bowed too. Thank you so much, Mr. Lug. I mean Hunter Sung, one of them said. Seriously, if it wasn't for you, another added. Thanks to you, my wife isn't a widow. A young hunter joked, his voice shaking as he approached Jin-Woo with tears in his eyes. He was the same guy who had made a joke about his hands shaking when Ki-hoon called off the raid earlier. Now he was deadly serious. Hunter Sung, because I'm so grateful for what you've done. May I give you a hug? Someone asked shyly. Okay, that's too far. Hunter Sung replied firmly. The others groaned in unison. There he goes again. Someone stop him, please. And then, another voice chimed in. Well, if Hunter won't let me hug him, maybe I'll go for a hug from you instead. Asayach wump. Aska. Let go of me, you're creeping me out. Someone shouted, trying to wriggle free. The squad burst into laughter. It was the first time they'd laughed since entering the A-rank dungeon. Jin-Woo watched with a smile, happy to see his team having fun together. He hadn't done this for praise or thanks, but their heartfelt reactions made him feel warm inside. Jin-Woo walked over to the female healer, who was cheering from the back of the group. She was so small that he almost didn't notice her until she stepped forward. He handed back the notebook she'd given him earlier. Her face turned red as she took it shyly with both hands. Thank you, she muttered. On the inside she was scolding herself. Why did I tell him anything? This was just another embarrassing moment that would keep her up at night. It was pretty ridiculous giving a notebook with her last will and testament to someone who had just easily defeated the boss. She glanced up at Jin-Woo, hoping he wasn't laughing at her. Instead, he looked serious and spoke in a firm tone. Miss Healer. Yes. She sat up straight, like she was surprised to be called out in class. Please keep your personal stuff out of the strike squad's gear from now on, Jin-Woo said with a grin. It makes things heavier. The healer stared at him, unsure how to respond. Oh, okay, Jin-Woo chuckled to himself, satisfied with what he'd said. It seemed like the other hunters had already gotten the message too. He turned around casually and walked away, leaving the healer looking completely stunned. Let's go, Jin-Woo said as he left with the surveillance team. But there was someone else there too. Hyeon had wanted to talk to Jin-Woo, but never got the chance. She'd almost reached out to stop him, but then held back. All she wanted was to ask for his number, or maybe just a little of his time. But talking to him now, when everything about his situation was still confusing, might just make things worse. Just then, a female mage walked up to her. Vice President? Yes? She pointed at Hyeon's hand. Why are you holding a pickaxe? Hyeon's face turned bright red as she stared at the pickaxe head in her hand. She quickly set it down and asked, Do you think that made me look weird? The mage tilted her head, clearly curious. Depends on who you ask, Jin-Woo said with a shrug. Hyeon's neck turned red too, but she didn't say anything. Jin-Chul, standing outside the gate, glanced at his watch, and turned to Jin-Woo. We're heading back to the association. If you're free, want to come along? President Go is having dinner with us. Jin-Woo hesitated for a moment before asking, What time is it? It's 5:15, Jin-Chul replied. Jin-Woo thought quickly. He could still make his meeting with Jin-Woo if he hurried, but he decided it was better to skip this one. With a polite smile he said, Thanks for inviting me, but I think I'll pass. Thank you, but I already have plans. Jin-Chul took slow, deep breaths to calm himself. He remembered seeing someone do this in a movie once, and he hoped it would help him stay cool. His future was about to be decided, and Jin-Woo's choice would change everything. Jin-Chul felt even more nervous than when he'd stood up to his dad, a few days ago, about the Yujin Guild. He needed to focus. Back to the basics, he reminded himself. It wasn't an accident that Jin-Chul had picked this cafe to meet. It was the same place where he'd first talked to Jin-Woo about his big plan. As he glanced around the cozy store, memories flooded back. If it weren't for the boss's help, he wouldn't have made it this far. A wave of nostalgia washed over him as he waited for Jin-Woo's answer. He ended up sitting at the same table as Jin-Woo too. Ding ding. The door chimed, and Jin-Woo walked in with confidence. Hey boss. Jin-Woo popped up from his seat, grinning from ear to ear and waving wildly. Jin-Woo gave a quick nod, and Jinwoo waited until he sat down before plopping back into his chair. So, what's going on? Jinwoo looked up curiously. Boss, your clothes. Oh, this. Oh, this. Jin-Woo had just come from fighting high orcs, so his clothes were pretty messy. There was even a small splash of orc blood on his shirt. Jin-Woo didn't seem to care. I came straight here after leaving the dungeon. Jin-Woo's eyes widened in surprise once again. Being around Jin-Woo made him feel like he wasn't trying hard enough. After becoming a guild master, Jin-Woo spent most of his free time drinking, but Jin-Woo was different. Even though he was super strong, he still trained hard in dungeons whenever he could. Jin-Woo couldn't help but feel bad about himself as he thought about how awesome Jin-Woo was. He had so much respect for him. It seemed like Jin-Woo wore his battle-stained clothes proudly, showing off all his hard work without hiding it. Those clothes were like a badge of honor for him. Jin-Woo's face tightened with determination. No matter what Jin-Woo decided, Jin-Woo was ready to back him up. No questions asked. So Jin-Woo knew he had to be totally honest. Boss, here's the thing. He spilled every detail about his fight with his dad that day, including Myeonwon Kwan-ko stepping in and revealing who had really saved the White Tiger Guild hunters at the Red Gate. Jin-Woo couldn't help but think, well, that was definitely unnecessary. But he wasn't mad. After all, Myeonwon had done it to help him out. Jin-Woo couldn't stop talking about the Red Gate, and it was easy to see why he was so pumped. Jin-Woo quickly got what Jin-Woo was hinting at. So you need my help to become the leader of Yujin Guild, right? Jin-Woo asked straightforwardly. After laying it all out, he waited patiently for Jin-Woo's response, skipping his usual jokes and charm. He nodded silently, ready to go along with whatever Jin-Woo decided. Jin-Woo was lost in thought, just as troubled as Jin-Woo was. Finally, he looked up and said, Jin-Woo. Then he swallowed hard. Jin-Woo's mouth went dry. He had no idea what was coming next. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo, the head of the Hunters Guild, got a surprising call. He dropped everything to yell in his private office. What? Jin-Woo Sung was at our raids yesterday and today, the newly revealed S-rank hunter. How had Jongin not known that he'd appeared in the midst of his own guild? He basically missed a chance that had been right in front of him. Jongin was frustrated. But, wait. He was on the excavation team yesterday and carrying luggage today. That explained how he'd gone unnoticed. Putting his motives aside, he felt that trying to figure out Jin-Woo's reasons would only lead to confusion and headaches. That wasn't important right now anyway. After helping the White Tiger Guild, he also lent a hand to the hunters, who were super grateful. They owed him big time. Jongin had hoped to be on the same level as Jin-Woo when recruiting him, but now the hunters were in the same boat as White Tiger. Still, I felt lucky to have discovered the identity of the 10th S-rank hunter before anyone else did. Right? But Jin-Woo's skills were even bigger than his debt. Jongin asked curiously, what kind of hunter is Jin-Woo Sung? Nike, unhunderted. Unsure how to answer, Jongin was puzzled. He knew Kim-hoon wasn't the type to make up stories or exaggerate. Still, he had to ask, is that really true? Kim-hoon nodded firmly. Yes, it's all true. So that's everything I saw, he said. But wait, does everything mean there's more to Jin-Woo than what was seen? If Jin-Woo is that strong, how does he compare to me? It might sound a bit childish, but it's a good way to figure out a hunter's skills. Ki-hoon thought for a moment before answering. Could you clear an even tougher at ranked dungeon by yourself, sir? He asked hesitantly. The response was quick. No way, but Jin-Woo managed to do it. But he turned down Hunter Cha's help. Tun-Tun was there too. Jongin wondered why she was there, but that wasn't his main concern right now. Could it have been a weaker A-rank dungeon? Someone asked. If that's the case, we should manage just fine. Another person replied. But that guy ended up saving everyone. Jongin Chai was the man they called the ultimate hunter. Ki-hoon's words could have come off as an insult, but instead of making him angry, they got his heart racing. Ki-hoon, Shan, Jin, we all had a chance to make the hunters the most famous guild in Korea, then Asia, and maybe even the world. If Jin-Woo was strong enough, this could be our big moment. President Chai, I started, even though it wasn't really my place to question how he ran things. Usually, Ki-hoon wouldn't speak out of line or complain about the guild. Jongin felt really curious. It's okay. Go ahead, he said. Then the man spoke up. Please recruit Hunter Sung for our guild. I think he can help you reach your goal. Jonggin's heart raced. He tried to steady his voice. I'll do my best. Meanwhile, outside the Korea Hunters Association headquarters, a crowd of reporters waited to talk to Min-sung. Min-sung Lee, Asia's superstar, is now a hunter. It's no stretch to say reporters from everywhere came to catch a glimpse of him. They pushed and shoved, trying to get the best spot. Hey, that's our spot, someone shouted. Come on. Look at all these people. Another reporter replied. You can't just claim a spot. Wherever you're standing is your spot now. Geez. The crowd spilled onto the road, all hoping to get close to Min-sung. Min-sung stood inside the association building, peering through the window with a big grin on his face. Yeah, that's about the right amount, he said to himself, clearly satisfied. He'd taken a break to make sure everyone was paying attention, and it looked like his plan was working. Just then, a reporter from South Korea's most popular newspaper walked up to him. Hey, Min-sung, what do you think of this headline for tomorrow's paper? The reporter asked, showing him the front page article. Min-sung glanced at it and shrugged. It's a bit boring, don't you think? The reporter looked surprised. You really think so? Yeah, Min-sung said, smirking. How about this Min-sung Lee, the man who has it all grabs superhuman strength? The reporter raised an eyebrow. Isn't that a bit too bold? Do you think it'll upset readers? Min-sung chuckled. None of it is untrue. Who in Korea would dare badmouth me? My fans and the media are always watching. Min-sung said smugly. Alright, let's run with that headline. The reporter agreed. Min-sung flashed a polite smile. Please and thank you. But as soon as the reporter was gone, he couldn't help but smirk. Why waste my breath arguing, when I always get my way? Just then, two fancy cars pulled into the parking lot. Vroom. The engines purred smoothly. Yoon-ho Baek from the White Tiger Guild, and Jongin Choi from the Hunters Guild stepped out, at almost the same time. Huh? Someone muttered in surprise. Look, someone shouted. It's Yoon-ho Baek, another voice added excitedly. And Jongin Choi is here too. The reporters who had been blocking the front entrance just moments before suddenly scurried over to the two guildmasters like bees to honey. Both men frowned in confusion. What are these? Reporters. Why are there so many people here today? And then came a flurry of camera clicks, sharp bursts of light as the reporters surrounded them, pelting them with questions. Are you two here to recruit Min-sung Lee for your guilds? One reporter asked. As Korea's top hunters, do you think Min-sung will retire from acting? Another shouted. What rank do you think he'll achieve? Someone else chimed in. Tell us, what do you think about Min-sung Lee? Yoon-ho Baek, clearly annoyed by the chaos, waved his hand sharply to shoo them away. I'm not here for him, Jongin said in a flat voice, without any emotion. Everyone in the industry already knows that Mr. Lee has joined the Reapers Guild. I'm here for something else. The reporters turned around, clearly upset they weren't getting the answers they wanted. What the heck? There's no story here. I got excited for nothing. I seem to think. But they couldn't really complain with two S-rank hunters standing there. So they went back to waiting for Min-sung. Once the reporters were gone, Yoon-ho and Jongin were left alone. They exchanged a glance. Yoon-ho broke the silence. I heard the hunters had some trouble too, he said, stressing the word, also, not as bad as losing an A-rank rookie. Came the reply. The tension between the two men was as thick as the buzz in the room. Yoon-ho, who'd gotten worked up, stopped, took a deep breath and sighed. In any case, he stepped in to help both White Tiger and the hunters. Luckily for everyone, he did. Our entire second elite squad would be dead if it weren't for him, Jongin said, his voice firm but tight with tension. There was a noticeable gap where he could have said his name, and that silence hung in the air like another argument waiting to happen. Jongin took a step closer to Yoon-ho, closing the space between them. That's why I have no choice but to bring him into our guild. It's the right thing to do. Yoon-ho didn't back down. Instead, he leaned in until their foreheads nearly touched. His eyes locked fiercely on Jongin's. The air between them crackled with unspoken challenges and unresolved tension. We lost some of our members, one person said. Shouldn't we get him as compensation to make up for what we lost? What's with this rank? Another person shot back. Are you planning on starting a war or something? The first person smirked. And what about you? When did you start caring so much about doing the right thing? The tension between them was thick, like sparks were flying. Then Taiju Lim, the leader of the Reapers Guild, walked onto the scene just in time for the press conference. Taju couldn't help but grin at the silly sight in front of him, two grown men completely frozen in a staring contest. What should he even say to them? It felt like they were counting their chickens before the eggs had hatched. He was practically bouncing with excitement because he knew White Tiger and the hunters always jumped at the chance to recruit talented hunters. Trying his best to hide his smile, he walked over to where they stood, still locked in their silent showdown. "Hey, Mr. Presidents, are you fighting over our Minsung?" Yuho and Jongin both turned sharply toward Taju at the same time. "What's up with this guy? I've already said I didn't care about Minsung or Mingon or whatever his name is." Taju took a step back, catching the sharp glares from both of them. "Man, what's gotten into these two?" Minsung flashed a grin. He already knew one of the guys with them, President Lim. They'd met when Minsung signed his contract. He had chosen the Reapers even though they weren't the strongest guild anymore. Instead of going for one of the top two, he wanted everyone to see him as a hero for the underdogs. For someone in the spotlight like him, how people saw him mattered most. And Minsung was a total pro at shaping his image. "Can you believe it? The best guilds in Korea are fighting over me." Minsung thought to himself, soaking in the attention. He didn't plan on being a hunter forever, but for now, he was enjoying the spotlight. Then, his manager walked into the room. "Minsung, everything's ready. Time for the press conference." "Got it," Minsung replied. His manager led him through the glass doors of the association building. As soon as he stepped outside, cameras started snapping photos like crazy. Snap. Snap. Minsung plastered on his usual fake smile and waved for the crowd of reporters and photographers. Just then, Jin-Woo arrived at the headquarters. He had come back 3 days later, just as planned. But, what was going on here? The place was packed with people. There was no way he'd get inside now. He could have used his stealth skill, jumped over reporters, or snuck in through the back door. But he'd already scheduled a time to meet with them, and didn't see the point in making things harder than they had to be. "It's not like I'm doing something wrong," he thought, so why shouldn't he just walk right in? Jin-Woo had to battle through a sea of reporters on the sidewalk in front of the association. "Excuse me, pardon me," he said. As he squeezed past them, some reporters groaned in frustration. "Oh, Simon," one muttered. Another snapped. "What the hell?" Others whispered. "What's with him?" The reporters raised their eyebrows, clearly annoyed, but powerless against an S rank. Jin-Woo managed to carve a path through the crowd in just a few seconds and stepped onto the stairs. But before he could go any further, a burly man blocked his way. "Hey," the man barked. It was Minsung's manager. His eyes locked onto Jin-Woo as he barked. "What the heck do you think you're doing? You work for the association or something?" Jin-Woo stood firm, shaking his head but never looking away. The manager's eyebrow twitched in surprise. "Can't you see all the reporters standing there?" Jin-Woo glanced over at the crowd of reporters briefly, before focusing back on the angry man in front of him. Jin-Woo noticed they were glaring at him, clearly annoyed. He figured they must be there for a press conference, but why would the path to the entrance be part of the press area? Reporters should respect people passing by, just like civilians shouldn't block reporters. With so many eyes on him, Jin-Woo just wanted to slip away without making a scene.